In our national program of talks, tonight we bring you an interview entitled The Lensman of Himalayas, in which eminent photographer and author Ashok Dilwali is in conversation with Naveen Gupta, All India Radio, Delhi.
The great American photographer Ansel Adams, who incidentally was also a pioneering environmentalist and author, once said that a photograph cannot be taken, it is made. The man before me tonight considers Ansel Adams to be his icon, is a great photographer, author, and his passion for Himalayas transcends all boundaries. He has authored more than 37 books, believe it or not, on Himalayas, and is still going strong. He perhaps is one of the greatest lensmen to have chronicled the great mountains. He is none other than Ashok Dilwali. Welcome to the studios of All India Radio.
Thank you very much.
Ashok Sahab, you have a very unusual name, It is Ashok Dilwali. Is it a pseudonym? Is it a nom de plume? Is it something of a marketing name? What it is?
So I'll tell you, there's a very interesting story behind my name. We are basically Agarwals from Haryana side. And long time back, my ancestors were living in Delhi. So when there were disturbances of Nadir Shah, etc. in Delhi, they ran for their lives and they went back to their home in Nuh, N-U-H, Nuh, near Palwal, the home place. The local people asked, who are these people, my ancestors? They said, who are these? He says, ye Delhi wale hain. They are from Delhi. Okay, they said, okay, then they'll make a separate place for them to stay, and we call them Delhi Walas. To Delhi Walas got
over the years,
from Delhi Walas it became Dilwali. So that is the history. But basically we are Agarwals from Haryana side.
You were born in pre-independent India.
Huh.
You were born when India was not independent.
Yes.
So you would have a very good picture of what was Delhi like, a few years after independence. I mean, you must have had photographs of Delhi also.
You see what happened. My father bought this studio, Kinsey Brothers, in 1945. And he started his own studio, similar studios, in 1931.
Okay.
So he had his own records in similar studios and a lot of records of Mr. Kinsey from 1905 onwards. But when I came to my studio in 1971, when I joined my studio after my studies, then the manager there, he said that this room is full of negatives, old negatives, and all the Rajwadas, all the royal families are no more there existing, and all these things are obsolete, and if we throw away these negatives, we'll have some space in this room. They are just lying as junk. Now, I was a total novice. I didn't know anything about it. Neither did my manager know the price of this. The most precious work, we just give it away to Kabadi. They were priceless. They were priceless. Never to be taken again. There was not a single royal family which had not been photographed by Mr. Kinsey in his studios or has gone to different places.
So not only royal families, I mean, you must have had photographs of Delhi also.
He had plenty of Delhi photographs because he was commissioned to take photographs of Viceroy House and all this Parliament Street, the Parliament, Indian Parliament, because at that time he was commissioned and he took all those photographs. In those pictures, all the jamun trees which you find on India Gate, on the near War Memorial, they are just planted.
Okay.
And he had taken it from the top of National Stadium. When he took it from the top of National Stadium, we saw Rashtrapati Bhavan and India Gate juxtaposed because of that perspective. And it was a beautiful photograph, I remember, but having no idea how priceless they were, we lost all that treasure. And I regret it. When I think of it, when this topic comes up sometimes I feel very sorry, very sad that why I made that blunder that, we just threw away diamonds like that. They were priceless.
Priceless from a historical
1905 onwards.
Historical point of view also, and for generations to come, they would have been priceless.
And Mr. Kinsey covered many things, not only just portraits. He used to do outdoor work also, which my father also did. So he used to treat my father as his son because he was elder to my father.
Mr. Kinsey was an Englishman.
He was an Englishman and it was a husband-wife team. Mr. Kinsey used to do the studio work and darkroom work. Mrs. Kinsey used to look after the reception and bookings and commercial side. She would look after. It was husband and wife team. 3 months in summer they used to operate in Simla, and in winter they used to come down to Delhi. And Delhi they had it in civil lines. There was no Connaught Place then. So when Connaught Place was made, they shifted from civil lines to Connaught Place in 1936. and they had their studios opposite Maiden's Hotel. Maiden's is a very old hotel there. So they had their studio opposite Maiden in Civil Lines. That was the place for New Delhi. Not Connaught Place and all that thing. They were much later developments. My father used to tell me that when Connaught Place was made, outside Minto Bridge, people could be looted. They could be robbed. It was such a lonely place, Minto Bridge, that people used to get robbed. They were scared to go to that area. We used to listen to all those things.
In those days, Mr. Dilwali, having a photograph taken was almost like participating in a festival. You wore new clothes. Photographers usually were family friends.
Yes.
They were very close to the family whenever a photograph had to be taken.
Yes.
And that relationship is gone now.
Yes. And I tell you, when I was working in my studio, so many people used to come. The first sentence they used to say, my father got photographed here. My grandmother got photographed here. So we were something like, as you have family doctors, we were like family photographers, that for ages they have been doing it.
Keepers of the family history.
Yes, it was an extended family. They used to have 100% faith that here is one place where you will be getting a very good job done. And they had trust, as you trust your advocate, your lawyers, as you trust your doctors. So similarly, we were also it was a very privileged thing to feel that, yes, this royal family always comes to us. And may I narrate one incident?
Definitely, please.
Mr. Kinsey closed his studio for 1 month.
Okay.
So my father used to go and visit him regularly. So he said, why have you closed the studio for 1 month? You know what was his reply? He said, I've got such a large order from Patiala family, royal family of Patiala, that if I do my current work as well as finish his work, I will be doing my second best. I want to give him my very best, so I want to concentrate this 1 month only doing his work. And I will not take fresh work, because I will not be doing justice to the fresh work, because all my mind and energy will be devoted to Patiala job. This was the level of professionalism. And the book that I have written about my autobiography, there also I mentioned his professionalism. He used to make the prints whole day, and at night he used to leave the prints for drying. There was no other method. It was just by drying he used to leave. Next morning he would come, start from one side, he'll start tearing one after the other. So my father said, you are wasting so much paper. Why are you destroying so many prints? He said, something is missing in this print. Something is missing. It's not the best. Like that, 50% of his work he would destroy.
And keep the best one.
Mr. Kinsey.
Now, Mr. Kinsey was sort of a mentor of your father? He was...
No, he was not a mentor. Because my father was having his own studios and he had his studio. My father was very good in outdoor work. And Mr. Kinsey was an expert in portraiture. So they were kind of rivals.
Okay.
But rivals as well as friends. And Mr. Kinsey always paid compliments to my father that I cannot match you in outdoor work. And you cannot match you in my studio work. So when he was leaving India in 1945, he said, enough is enough. I worked for 40 years in the studio. Now I want to go and retire in London. I want to go back home. So I want to sell my studios. My father was a self-made man at that time. He didn't have much money. He had only 38,000 rupees in his bank balance. So Mr. Kinsey said, okay, I'm getting much better offers from other persons in Bombay. Okay, but I like you only. I will give it to you only. You give me 38,000 rupees. You walk in, I walk out. No valuation, nothing. At this point, Mrs. Kinsey got a little irritated. Kinsey, she was part of the negotiation. So she said, but darling, BK, he used to call my father BK by his initials, Bharat Kumar Dilwali. But darling, BK will make all this money, 38,000, within 1 year from the reorders. He got so many negatives. He'll be reorder printing, then he'll be recovering the money of this whole studio in one year only. But Mr. Kinsey said, no, but I trust this man much more than anyone, and he'll be the one who'll keep my name alive. I want my flag to keep flying. So that's what my father honored him. And in 1949, my father and mother, they went for a holiday to Europe, America for 6 months. And at that time, they met Mr. and Mrs. Kinsey at their home in London. They were alive till 1949. And, you can see the age difference. Mr. Kinsey was like my grandfather's age. And my father, that affection was there.
Now, you followed your father's footsteps into photography.
Yes.
How did you take up photography?
I'll tell you. I was not at all knowing that I will be going into this profession. I thought I will become a chartered accountant. I did my chartered accountancy from Bombay in 1966, 67, 68. 3 years I was there. After qualifying, I felt that I am not going to enjoy this work. I didn't find any job satisfaction. I saw my seniors, my bosses working. I said, I'm not cut out for this. I want to look for some job satisfaction in my work. And that time I came across one friend. He had a studio in Simla. His father was my father's chela. His father, Mr. Roshan Studio, was my father's chela. He learnt work from my father. And he was running his studio very well in Simla. I got inspired by him. His name was Roshan. Roshan was studio and his name was Akshay. Akshay was about my age. He was a little senior to me. I was very impressed by Akshay, his lifestyle. Every customer that would coming to his shop, he was knowing them by their first name. I felt that every customer is like his family member. And he was a A1 person. In technical, he was perfect in taking pictures, making pictures, retouching, finishing. I said, my father has a studio in Delhi, Crown Place, which is sort of a neglected studio because my father was paying all his attention to similar studios. So Kinsey Brothers, after 1945, he had always kept managers, employees there. So that studio was sort of lacking in the but portraiture quality was very good. But from business side, it was not doing so well as it should do. So I joined my father's studio in Kinsey Brothers, modernized the thing, brought new cameras, the ultimate camera. Then I gradually brought color photography also, went to Bombay to learn color training. And then I got my training and I started color work. So it was kind of an accident that I went to Simla and I saw his lifestyle and I was quite impressed. I said, okay, I'll do that. Then I started as a photographer.
You didn't have any regrets leaving chartered accountancy for photography?
No, I have no regrets. No, I have no regrets. But you see, either you can follow your head or you can follow your heart. I think I followed my heart. If I had followed my head, I would have had much better bank balance.
How did your father learn photography?
My father was born and brought up in Kolhapur. At that time, my grandfather was a private secretary to Shahu Maharaj, grandson of Shivaji. So Shahu Maharaj came to know that such a person, Professor Kunjalal, my grandfather was teaching Persian. He was teaching Farsi, Persian. So he said, you leave all the teaching business, you become my private secretary. So he left that teaching thing and he became his private secretary. There my father, my Tauji, my father's elder brother, my father's elder sister, they were born. So my father's first mother tongue was Marathi.
Okay.
Because he had never seen his mother. He was only 3 years old when he lost his mother. So he was brought up by a Maharashtrian lady there. And my father used to speak very fluent Marathi. And what happened in 1929, my Tauji, my father's elder brother, he left Kolhapur and he came down and settled down in Simla.
Okay.
So then he found the place good. Then he called my father. He said, you leave Kolhapur, you come and settle down in Simla. You start whatever photography you have learned in Kolhapur, you start your studio in Simla. So that is how my father went there. 1931, he started his studio there. And he had got his training for photography in Kolhapur. There was one person called Mr. Naidu. He was my father's mentor. I have his picture, Mr. Naidu and my father. When my father went to Kolhapur just to visit them, he got themselves photographed together. And he got his training in Kolhapur, basically, in Maharashtra. And he had a great affection for Maharashtra, Marathi and Maharashtrian people. My father had great weakness for that because he was born there. So.
He was born there, yeah. When you took up photography, was your father at the expense of chartered accountancy?
Yes.
Was your father happy or did he have a word of caution?
Frankly, he was very unhappy.
Why? Why?
He said that there's not enough money in this, what you're doing. He always felt that you should keep it as a hobby. You should keep the photography as a hobby.
Despite the fact that he was such a good photographer, such a renowned photographer?
But somehow he was...
reluctant for the children?
He wanted me to become an industrialist, have some factories and work as a factory owner or something like that. He wanted me to go into that kind of a thing.
Business?
Business, yeah. Basically business and making more money. But to become, like all my friends, they're like that. I don't think any friend of mine is into thing like mine,
So how did you convince him that no, you wanted to be a photographer instead of a chartered accountant?
When I started that, he was a little upset about it. He was not very comfortable that I should do into this. You should do it as a hobby but go into business. But I was adamant. I don't know whether I did it.
What about your mother? Was she supportive? Your mother?
My mother was neutral. She always supported me. She loved me like I was her favorite child. So she supported me. But my father was little uncomfortable for me.
And you're the only child in the family who picked up photography?
No, we are six.
No. You're the only one who picked up photography?
No, my brother also did. My brother also did, but he was more into commercial side of photography. marketing, that kind of thing. But I was purely as a profession, I followed it as a profession. I never followed photography as a business. Always it was my objective, my desire that I should do my very best for the customer who have faith in me, and they have come all the way from such a long places to get themselves photographed. So I should do my very best. They're more interested in, how much money they're making. I was never money-minded that way.
Since you grew up around dark rooms and cameras, as a child, did you pick up a camera and go around?
Yes, my first camera I got at the age of 8 in 1952. I got my first camera, and my father taught me how to load the film into the camera and all. I used to take a lot of pictures as a youngster. When I went to Bombay in '66, I had kept all my old photographs in albums in one place. So what happened in my absence, in that Almira, the White Ant scheme, Dimak, White Ants, they came and they destroyed all the thing. All my old paintings, I was good at painting also in modern school. Okay. I got a Shankarji prize also in on the spot competition. Okay. And so all those paintings were, when I started photography, all those photographs, they were there in those albums. But all that was destroyed because of that white ant thing. White ant, you don't come to know, but gradually when you open it, you find everything is gone.
Yeah.
So I lost a lot, all that thing.
You lost a lot to white ants, you lost a lot to that manager who asked you to dispose of such archival pictures.
Very tragic thing in my life.
Tragic things. How did the passion for Himalayas develop?
Oh, yes, I'll tell you. That's also very interesting. I was doing my portraiture in 1971. Day in, day out, I was doing them. In 1979, my nephew, he was supposed to go for a trek with my father's friend, late Mr. P.N. Mehra. They were planning to go to Sikkim. But at last minute, my nephew, he backed out. He said, "Uncle, I don't want to go." So then Mehra Sahib asked me, "Ashok, why don't you come for a trek with me?" "Sir, I have never trekked. My mother said you can't even walk from Connaught Place to Jorbagh. How can you walk 15 kilometers every day and there too in the hills?" I said, "Okay, let me give it a try. If I don't find it worthwhile, if it's something beyond me, I'll come back alone. No problem, I'll take a train and come back." But I went there, and to my utter surprise, I found that I was as fit as anybody else. I could walk 15 kilometers. And I carried my cameras with me. You had to carry separate cameras, one for slide, one for color negative, one for black and white. Each camera was dedicated to each film. You didn't have today like digital that one camera will do everything. I had carried 3 cameras, and I enjoyed a lot. Mehra Sahib was my mentor. He taught me to take this photograph, take this landscape. You should do this, do that. And I found that I got job satisfaction. I was enjoying the trek. I really was thrilled to be in the mountains like that. In the forest, walking the forest by a riverside. We were camping near the rivers in our own tents and everything. I liked that thing very much. Then it really caught on. Then I did some treks with clubs. When you start your trekking, you should do it with some organized thing. You should not be on your own. But after you have learned the basics, just as the birds, they fly on their own after some time. So then I started doing solo. I used to go alone. And for nearly 40 years, trekking and traveling in the mountains all alone. Every trip for 40 years, never taken a rupee from any quarter, any help from me. I did everything on my own.
And from those 40 years, you have authored 37 books.
Yeah. You know what, when this lockdown happened, then I said, let me go through my hard disks. I had so much material in my hard disks. Then I started searching what are the possible books, what are the possible themes in this one. Then I found the one I did called Magnum Opus, my life's 300, my favorite photographs. I came out with that. Then I came out with the Moonlight Photography. I'm the pioneer of Moonlight Photography in the country.
What is Moonlight Photography?
Photographing with long exposure, half hour to 4 hours exposure. Half to 4 hours exposure at night. I started that. Nobody has done that kind of a thing. I can't think of anyone. Moonlight photography of all Himalayas, different places. And in that photography, your hand meter didn't work, your camera meter didn't work because it's totally dark, almost dark. You can't see anything. Very little of moonlight there.
So it's mind and heart coordination, as you said. You have to sometimes use your heart and not mind.
Yes. So then you see, I used to take with 3 different cameras, bracket the exposure with 3 cameras. One camera half an hour, other camera 1 hour, other camera for 2 hours. Because moon is going to stay stationary at one place. So you have to do it quickly at half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours. Develop the films, and whichever is the best one, keep that one. And I used to use big cameras, Linov 617, 612, Mami RB67. Never used 35mm for any work for Moonlight. Now I published a book on Moonlight Photography. Then I found that I have a theme on my morning walks. Then I have done a lot of flower photography. So I did a book on Sufism. So on one side there is a beautiful photograph of flowers, because in flowers also, like Ansel Adams, my idol, he became so famous for photography. In his studio in New York, flowers were sent from all over the world to give me photographs. Irving Penn, I have his book. I bought that book in 1975, 76. That book, the way he photographed the flowers, I copied that, I imitated that way of photographing. And then I did a book on Sufism. Then in 1991, I was going from Manali to Leh. I was with Lord Hunt and Lady Hunt. Lord Hunt was the leader of first successful expedition to Everest.
Okay.
I was traveling with them. So I said, I have only one condition, that I should be allowed to stop the vehicle, and wherever I take a picture, you must stop. Okay, they said, yes, we'll do that. So I took 4 or 5 places. I took pictures of sheep. So Lady Hunt, she was very humorous, a very interesting lady. So she said humorously, so Ashok, I see your next book will be on sheep. So this she said 30 years ago, 91. And after 30 years, I discovered that I have so many beautiful pictures of sheep. Then I did a book on that. Sheep in Ladakh, Himachal, all different places, Uttarakhand, Kashmir, wherever. So I compiled a book on that. Then I said, I have led some interest. I have had a lot of interesting episodes in my life. So why not write a book on my experiences behind the camera, treasured memories. Then you see, 1996, my elder daughter, she was doing her MBA in America. And ECFA company had introduced one film, black and white film called Scala. Black and white slide film, first of its kind. There was no black and white slide film. So my daughter used to bring those films for me. I used to expose, and she used to get them developed in New York. And I chose Agra's monuments. I concentrated on Mughal architecture.
Okay.
So this book also, I found I've got so much material on Mughal architecture. Wanted to do a book on that one. Now, after that, it led to water. I have got so many pictures of waterscapes that is going to press very soon next week on waterscapes.
Wow.
And now new idea has come on cold deserts of India.
Okay. Ladakh and...
Cold deserts of Ladakh, Lahore, Spiti. Ladakh I've been 18 times.
Okay.
And Lahore and Spiti I've been at least 25, 30 times. So I said, why not do a book, pictorial, on cold deserts of India? There's no book like that on that one. I'm in the process at the moment, selecting the slides, large format as well as 35mm, as well as medium format, compiling book on cold deserts.
Your family members don't tell you that please don't go on such dangerous treks to get these beautiful photographs? I mean, don't they warn you that with advancing years, such treks become dangerous?
My family members have been very supportive.
Okay.
Very, especially my wife and my son. My wife, I think if I didn't have a wife like my wife, I wouldn't have been able to do so much. It was her cooperation, her goodwill, her kindness to let me go so often. And then she looked after my aged parents and she looked after my 3
Not
children.
only that, I mean, you have your adventures with bears and wildlife.
Yes.
I was reading somewhere you promptly come and tell her that.
Yes,
So-
I used to, such and things happen, such and such happen.
So she never told you that enough is enough now, stay at home?
I used to tell her everything what used to happen. Then she said, "Okay, why don't you write down your anecdotes, etc." I said, who will be interested? There are thousands of photographers like me. He said, no, you do, because you do have some interesting things. So one day I took her advice and I went through my stock and I found there were 70 episodes which were interesting and I wrote about them. And then somebody told me that you should go to Ministry of External Affairs, show them if they would be interested in doing a book. So the gentleman there was very kind and he said, Mr. Dilwali, I have never seen a book like this. So give me 2,000 copies, but in large size, which will go. I give 2,000 copies. In that one, I have written, one side there is a photograph and the other side is a description. Now, photograph will not say what has happened there. If you allow me, I'll give you one incident in that one. I had gone to a place called Chandratal, a trek to Chandratal, and at night there was a small tent of the tea shop was there. I slept there with my assistant, and at night 3 or 4 shepherds also came. So it was a small place. We were so tired, there was no place to stay. To sleep. It was very uncomfortable. And next morning, he just gave me half cup of tea and 2 biscuits. He said, this is breakfast. That's all I have, nothing more. So that was a very, very basic thing in my life. And I came back to Delhi. And on the weekend, we went to Bombay on my friend's son's marriage. He took us as a barati too. And we stayed in Taj. And Taj, luxurious breakfast. You could, as far as your eyes could go, the most comfortable sitting. Then I told my wife, look at the contrast in my life. In this 1 week, I was sleeping with shepherds, and half cup of tea and 2 biscuits was my breakfast. And the same week, what a contrast I've got in my life. So those kind of things, incidents, I put in that book, 70. So that book is having very interesting.
Mr. Dilwali, a romanticist like you, someone who has, as you were saying, seen such great contrasts, don't you think that now photography has become all craft, all technology, that art, that heart is all gone?
There are some people who are working, but, I don't know if I should say that or not, but commercial thing has come up a lot in this. I was doing it purely for the fun of it. And luckily, since I was a photographer, technically I got better pictures because I had the background of photography.
No, even your idols like Ansel Adams, Frank Smith. Frank Smith was the great Everest climber. And Ansel Adams was this man who loved environment.
Yes.
These men had something to look forward other than photography also.
Yes.
So did you. Himalayas is a passion with you.
Ansel Adams became my idol because my father used to like his work very much. And my father had his book of Ansel Adams, which I used to see. Then I have dedicated one book on Ansel Adams, dedicated to him. That is Himalayas black and white. Suppose he was in Himalayas, what kind of pictures he would shoot. I have printed that book. I published that book on Himalayas black and white. What I did, I sent one copy to his son, Michael Adams. He's also 85 plus. Then he liked the book very much, his son. He said, if you come to California, come and stay with me. Come and meet us. I'm very happy with that somebody so far away, thousands of miles away, would remember my father and dedicate that book to him. That was the end of it. After 1.5 years, I again got an email from him that I was going through your book dedicated to my father, and some pictures I have liked very much, and I would repeat my offer, if you come to California ever, come and meet us. And by chance, within 15 days, we were going to USA. My younger daughter, she lives in Seattle. So we were going to America. And I said, Michael, we are coming to America and we'll meet you there. So we went to that place and he showed me the dark room where Ansel Adams worked, his living room, his place where Ansel Adams has worked and lived, the same place Michael is living. So that dream came true. It was kind of a pilgrimage for me to see his house, to see where he lived, to see the dark room where he worked. It was a kind of a pilgrimage for me.
And no amount of money can buy that kind of happiness.
What an honor for me to be able to see Ansel Adams' work displayed in his house.
Who in the family, after you, is interested in photography?
My son is a very good photographer, very good. He takes very good pictures, but he's not into commercial side. He's not, because, I don't know, he doesn't want to make it as a career. He's doing it something else. Then...
any grandchildren?
My grandchildren, I have 5 grandchildren. One girl from my elder daughter, she takes beautiful pictures, wonderful pictures. I think my love for photography has gone to my granddaughter directly. And next year she'll be an engineer. And she'll be studying in Washington University. Whenever she gets time, she goes to different places and sends her pictures to me. Right now she's here in India at the moment for 2 weeks. She's here. Her name is Mansi. Mansi takes beautiful pictures.
And are you going to teach her some tricks of the trade?
You see, I have given her my books. She's and otherwise something is inborn in her. She, whenever we go for dinner or somewhere, sitting there, she will take some very interesting picture right in the dining table also. Either it's a lamp upstairs or crockery or something like that. She will just sit there and find something abstract and very interesting thing. She has that knack of finding the thing.
Ashok Dilwali, it is people like you who make this earth a beautiful place to live in. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My great honor.
In our national program of talks, you were listening to an interview entitled The Lensman of Himalayas, in which eminent photographer and author Shri Ashok Dilwali was in conversation with Naveen K. Gupta of All India Radio, Delhi. Produced and presented by Naveen K. Gupta, this program came to you from the 24/7 channel of Delhi station.